Welcome to Her Imprint, part of the Impressions Exchange. I'm Denise Gustafson, your host. This podcast celebrates the remarkable women who are transforming the printing industry. We'll explore their journeys, from challenges to triumphs, and share the stories that leave a lasting imprint. Today, my guest is Anna Brown. She's the Senior Director of Design, Technology, and Sustainability for Oliver Inc. Anna, welcome.
Thank you, Denise. Great to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well. To get us started, could you give us a little bit of background about Oliver Inc.?
Yes, of course. So Oliver is a packaging supplier with 6 facilities across the country. We primarily focus on folding cartons, but each plant has also offerings that are unique to them. Some have digital capabilities and they can offer short run and production quality samples. Others will have some label capabilities and printed collateral in addition to folding carton. And we have one facility that is really good at blister cards, and then another that has rigid box making equipment. So diverse capabilities for almost every packaging need.
Yeah, I can only imagine what the facilities must look like with that diverse type of equipment in there to do all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to visit every facility and see what they focus on.
So, what got you into the packaging market? How did you end up starting out?
So that's actually a funny story, or not actually a story. I made a very conscious decision to study printing technology and management in Chinese, which I know sounds very odd.
Kind of, yes, I will agree with that.
No, I have to say that I did that in Germany. I grew up in Germany and I studied there, and people joke that everyone in Germany is an engineer. And that's not necessarily 100% true, but in my case, that holds some truth. I did consider other very creative professions like photography and graphic design and jewelry design. And I did some internships in some of those fields, and I spent some time with people in those professions. I loved the creative aspect, but something was missing. I don't know, I'm a first child, I'm German. I feel like I'm very type A. So I think I needed a little bit more than just creativity for it to feel like I can sustain this successfully.
Mm-hmm.
One day I went to visit a printing facility with my dad, whose friend ran a small print shop in Germany. And I was really fascinated by everything that went on with pre-press, the actual printing, and also post-press activities. I looked a little bit more into that, and I found this really cool program. It was printing technology and somehow Chinese at the same time.
Okay.
Part of the program was that you would spend 3 semesters in China and you get a double diploma that's recognized in both countries. So to me, that was kind of everything I've been looking for, right? It has activity, it has that technology aspect, which makes it more secure. And then also, I love languages in general. And it just seemed like such an adventure to go to China and do that.
So you spent 3 semesters, so that's what, about a year and a half?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, exactly.
in China. So what was that like?
It was very cool and at the same time super hard. So the first semester, we did an internship in a printing facility, and we had very intense Chinese lessons. So we had Chinese lessons before, and we had many teachers. Some had to teach us about the technology aspect and the technical terms.
Mm-hmm.
Others, we had a Chinese native speaker who would just coach us on colloquial Chinese. And then we had one person who was a sinologist, and she gave us the formal education in Chinese. So very intense right there.
Yeah.
From the start. But even with that, we weren't really prepared for what we encountered. It was hard in the beginning. The textbook Chinese doesn't prepare you for living in China. And where we went, we lived in Xi'an, which is a big city. It's where all the terracotta warriors are. So
Okay.
that's what Xi'an is known for. It's a city of 6 million inhabitants. So it's big, but people don't really speak English. So you have to get by with Chinese. And we also knew that after that first 6 months, we had to study in Chinese. We had to take part in the Chinese curriculum. So that was really hard.
Yeah, learning it in a classroom setting and then actually being immersed in the culture and the language is two very different things.
Yeah. But it was also what I had hoped for, which is that kind of adventure. Seemed like every day was a new adventure. Like sometimes we would completely fail and say something very silly and people would laugh at us. And other times, the littlest things like you finally got to understand the Chinese menus and you were able to successfully order a dish and not get cold chicken skin and cucumbers. Yeah, there were lots of wins, lots of issues that we encountered, but overall, it was a fantastic experience.
That sounds interesting. Although I have to ask, how many times did you get cold chicken skins and cucumbers?
Actually, only once
Oh,
because
good.
that was almost the first day we arrived, and we just, oh, this is the sign for chicken. And yeah, it didn't pan out well.
Especially not if you were looking for a warm dish.
Yeah. And after that, we took home the menus, translated them, and ate really well for the rest of our stay.
That's good. So, when you went to that print shop in Germany that first time, what was it that really piqued your interest at that point?
It's that combination of creating something that is informative and beautiful at the same time. And after I went there, I became much more conscious of all the print that is around us. I think as a consumer, you don't really consciously think about printing, but so many things we touch and interact with during our day are printed. I really became aware of how powerful print can be. I started noticing things. I think that was what probably drew me to it, that it is artistic. Print itself used to be the black art. And I
Mhm.
still feel like that when I see a very successful print operator in their element. It seems like it's just such a nice flow. And there's so much going on. There's so many variables, but yet they can control them and put out this beautiful piece of artwork and control it throughout a very long run. So to me, that seems almost magical. With if you really understand all the print variables, it seems almost impossible.
Yeah, that it's gonna come out a certain way. And then if you're using some of even the older school technologies, or if you're using a letterpress or something, it really is artesian. There's a craftsmanship to it that in some ways is missing from some of the technology we have today, but at the same time, it's still very creative and artistic.
Yeah, I agree. I love all the different print technologies and how different they are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you got back from China and you finished college, you got your degree, how did you get started in the industry? You have this shiny new degree. So what's next?
Yeah. So it's another story. I actually met my husband in China.
Hmm.
He's American. He taught English after college. I knew that I wanted to be in the US after graduating from college. That was difficult, right? I knew I wanted to be in New York City at the time. And I knew I wanted to do something with Chinese and printing. You can imagine how many job offers there are for something that particular. What I did, I just networked with anyone I could to talk to people. And finally, I found a company that wanted to expand their sourcing in China. They did specialty packaging for the entertainment industry, and a lot of the packaging needed a lot of touches and handwork and used specialty materials like wood and tin. And it's very creative, but they needed someone in China to find companies that can handle this work, right?
Hmm.
So I ended up partnering with them and I spent several months in China getting that supply chain off the ground. They also had just signed with a management company that supplied an office and some personnel in Shanghai. So I would go there and make sure that they understood exactly what we were looking for. I hired some QA personnel. They would go to all the facilities to make sure that any shipment would be inspected before it made its long 1 month journey over to the US. It was the perfect job. I loved it. It was creative. After I did my due diligence in China, I came
Hmm.
to the US and yeah, it was great.
So, how long did you stay there?
I stayed in New York for about 3 years. And I only left because we were moving around. My husband's job led us to a few different places in the US before we settled here in Cleveland.
So now you're in Cleveland. Is that when you started at Oliver Inc?
Yeah, originally that was Tab Packaging and Design,
Okay.
and Oliver purchased us about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. As you were doing this, was there a particular aha moment that really solidified for you that this really was your calling?
I don't know if there was one particular moment. I loved it when I started studying it. I thought it was cool, but once I started to really learn about it, I was like, there's so much to it. You can really go into so many different aspects of it. You can go into pre-press. There's all that technology there. And printing is very varied. Letterpress, like we said, or offset is very different from flexo and gravure, and the products that you're making, everything has their intricacies. But mostly what I realized is that I found this little gem there. I unearthed this gem. It is in plain sight, and no one really sees it. People don't really know about it. But
Hmm.
even now, I think it feels almost like a little club that we belong to. And it's a small world. I don't know how you think about it, but I meet the same people over and over, which I think is really nice. Even when I go to international shows like Drupa, I see and meet people that I've studied with or worked with in previous lives, or salespeople that have moved around from one company to the another. And I like that sense of community. There is a lot that you can do with print in so many different aspects of it, but at the same time, it feels like a small community.
Hmm. Indeed. Now, for you, you went to print shops in Germany, you were in China, then you were in the US. What was it like as a woman in those print shops? Did you feel alone as a woman? What was the makeup of some of those other shops? I'm used to the ones in the US, but I have really no insight into some of those other countries.
It depended where you were, right? I think in China, it was very hard because we rotated through every department. But when we were in the print shop, I really felt like I was on an island because it was that cultural difference. People were very intimidated to talk to me. They were very aware that I was there, but I was also not able to do anything. I was shadowing people, but no
Hmm.
one would really, I wouldn't say no one. There was one guy who was a French student at a university in China, and he was the delegate who was supposed to talk to me. He made me feel less alone. But generally, it was just funny, probably, for them to have me there, and they didn't really know what to do with me. But yeah, it was interesting. In the US and in Germany, it felt more normal. I love being in print shops, and I just ask a lot of questions. Like, even though I study printing technology, I don't know everything about printing. And I like to talk to the operators, get their point of view, and learn as much as I can from the experts who actually work on the equipment.
Now, in terms of training, mentorship, how impactful or how important were both of those to you as you were maturing and working your way through the different responsibilities and jobs that you had in the industry?
I think mentorship is very important, and or just having advocates in the companies that believe in you. I had various mentors and advocates within the companies I've worked at, and especially the first one, Triplex Packaging. The owner of the company believed in me from the start. He put so much belief into me that he just sent me off to China. It was a lot of responsibility, and I was happy that I got that. And he taught me so much at the same time. I would just learn from him. He was this really creative soul. And with his vision, I was able to go out and find what we needed. But it was that collaboration of sharing with me and believing in me that really helped me get a great start in the industry.
Is there a way for us as an industry to better implement, whether it's a mentorship program, an official one, or unofficially, to really help to bring people along as they're learning? Because most of the people, they're not like you. They don't study printing.
Mhm.
Most people, when they're coming into the industry, they have no idea what it is, what it does, what it can do. They really are green.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important. We at Oliver have recognized that as well. And we actually just started this training program for young salespeople who come there just right out of college, who might be super enthusiastic about the industry, but they just don't have the experience to really be successful. It's a 1 year program. We call it our captain's program, and we send them throughout each facility. They meet all the people there in every department. They spend several hours in design. They will spend several hours in pre-press or on a digital press or in our offset department, even on the folder gluer. We want to put them to work. We want to have them have a very hands-on experience. And at the same time, we give them some classroom learning almost. We have so many experts and people in each facility who've been there a long time and know their craft really well, and they can share. We've just done this in our Cleveland facility. We kicked it off a couple weeks ago, and I got to spend a few days with our young captains, and that was so rewarding. They're all wonderful and they're so enthusiastic. And it was just really nice to share with them what color management is and how we control color. And I gave them a little printing 101 and really tried to touch just on all of the different aspects of print production. And yeah, it was a really long presentation. So I was happy that no one dozed off, but all, they
Always
were
good.
all, they were all amazing and just kept listening to me.
I can only imagine it was probably pretty overwhelming in some ways for some of them if it's new for them. But they're also coming out of college with that enthusiasm that they want to do a really good job. They want to be able to put some of their skills to work.
Yeah. And I think just being able to go to each facility. So once they're done with the program, they really know who they can lean on when they need help, when they need an expert on a call or something like that. So I think they make those connections, which is really important. And they learn maybe sometimes duplicative information, which is great because that just helps to reinforce the knowledge.
Yeah, it certainly does. Now, a question for you about when you were starting out. Your first job, you're in the States, and you are entrusted with setting up this huge supply chain in China and sourcing everything. But you're a young woman at this point. Was that hard for you in terms of maybe people didn't trust your judgment because you were so young?
Mhm. I think I was very aware of my youth and my lack of experience too. I had this great education to fall back on and my experience in China. So I was very confident that I was could do what was being asked of me. I had
Hmm.
basically sold that. But yeah, I think especially going to China and in China, rank and seniority is a very important concept.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew I couldn't make myself older. I just had to deal with it. And the way I dealt with it really was just trying to be as professional as I could to show them that you can take me seriously. And I have my stuff together, created presentations in Chinese and English. So even for some of the remoter facilities where people wouldn't speak English, I would be prepared and I could converse with them. And I think they were just caught off guard by that. They didn't expect me to speak Chinese at all. So I think I won them over with that. And I never had a bad experience. I had some funny experiences, but never a bad one.
I guess it's better to be underestimated, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, for young women that are entering, they could be facing maybe not the same issues that you faced in China with, and part of that was cultural. But
Mhm.
even in the States, some people could look down on them because you don't know anything. You don't, even if they are starting to get positions of some senior positions, they might view them like you only have a few years in the industry. It's not enough. Do
Yeah.
you see any of that kind of ageism? It could go younger, it can even go older in some ways.
I haven't really experienced it, like I said, but I think any prejudice, ageism is just like a result of preconceived notions, right?
Yep.
People assume that someone who is young does not have enough experience to make a good or sound suggestion or even decision. So I think as a result, people might feel a lot of pressure to perform or be confident or to have to know everything, even when they don't. And I don't think that's fair. So I think the best advice I would give people or young women, young men is to just know that it's okay to not know everything. Just ask a lot of questions. And I feel like when you ask questions, you almost disarm those ignorant voices that want to just put you down. Instead, you ask questions and get your suggestions in there and see where they land.
So we haven't really touched on it, but work-life balance is a huge thing for a lot of people, men, women alike. But I guess my question is, how do you balance the demands of work and home life? And how are you noticing or observing that companies are responding to, in some ways, a push to have a better work-life balance for many of their employees?
Obviously, work life balance is extremely important. I don't think anyone can be really efficient or effective at work if they can have some downtime to recharge their batteries. And coming from Europe, I think it's a different environment. There is definitely a lot more pressure in the US to always perform, be always on. And I don't know that is actually very effective. I do think we have to go out. For me, it's God and nature, switch off technology and just recharge my batteries, do yoga, those things, play with my kids, go skiing. I need that. And obviously, my family always comes first. So if there is an event that my kids have and I'm not traveling, I will definitely attend that and make every effort. Even if I have to log back on at night and finish what I was doing. I think that flexibility is something that is more okay now. Sometimes it's okay to work from home when your child is sick now because we know it works.
Yep.
Although I love to be in the office, I love the energy of our production facility. I also really appreciate that when I need to be home, I can be home. And I'm really lucky that my husband's amazing. He can do everything I can do. If I have to travel, I know that my kids are still going to eat and go where they need to go. It is better now that it has been, but I actually had to take a few years off when my kids were really little because I didn't think that maternity leave was enough here in the
Hmm.
US, and I didn't have any family to lean on. I took my time, and I'm really happy that I did that. It was one of the hardest jobs I've ever done to be a stay-at-home mom. I really was happy when I went back to work.
You finally got to rest a little bit, huh?
Yes, it did feel like that. It felt, oh wow, I have time to myself. This is such a luxury, even if I was sitting at the computer and just working. But
Hmm.
I'm really happy that I was able to do it, stay home when I needed to. And I think I'm a better boss for it now. Yeah.
And that's a hard decision to make, to take the time off.
Yeah, because you never know where you're going to enter back in. I feel I've never really made, how people have like their 5-year plan. I don't
Yep.
know. I don't. I've always lived in the moment because my life and my career has been so unpredictable. I never got into a job by just the normal process. Like you apply to a job and you get it just because it was so different. So
Hmm.
it usually came about a different way.
It is definitely interesting because I think for women especially, it's a hard decision to make, to decide to have a family. And if you decide to leave the workforce to go and do that, to start that, and then to try to come back in. But I do think nowadays there's a lot more understanding on the part of companies that in some cases, this is what the employee needed. They didn't leave because they necessarily wanted to. They wanted to make sure that their family was strong.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as much as it sometimes hurts to lose an employee to those kinds of family obligations, you just want them to be happy
Hmm.
and fulfilled. And if you have happy employees, they will be good for your company, right? If half of their heart is not somewhere else because they're constantly worried about their children or that they really want to be somewhere else, then that's probably also not a great situation. I was really happy that I was able to take the time, be 100% at home when I was, and now I can be 100% at work because I know my kids are in school for most of the day.
And it's interesting too for that employee that decides to leave the workforce for those couple of years. If they then approach that company that they left from, and if they leave on good terms, and if there's a very good possibility that they might be able to be absorbed right back into the company that they left.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that I would fight for every employee that has been amazing before they left. Absolutely.
Hmm. And it's not like they were leaving because they didn't like it. They just had different goals for their life at that point.
Yeah. And you know what? I also think that, at least for me, thankfully, I haven't had a hard time finding a job because everything's printed. So there's so many opportunities. And it is hard for us to find good
Hmm.
people who have industry knowledge. And even if I have to pivot a little bit, because sometimes I would be doing sourcing, other times I would be in a job that was more focused on purchasing or it was a little bit of a different industry. I always was able to make that connection relatively quickly. And there were opportunities. I think there are opportunities. And this is also why this industry is so amazing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of something for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, one of my favorite questions that I ask is knowing what you know now. So, based on your history of how you started, your experience in packaging companies in China, moving to the US, if you were just getting ready to start in the industry now, you just got your degree, you're going to step into the industry, what advice would you give yourself?
I could have never predicted that I've done what I've done. It's so crazy to think of. I couldn't have planned it. And I don't regret anything I've done. I probably would do it all over again. As hard as it sometimes was to really get to where I wanted to be.
Hmm.
The one thing that I was really apprehensive about, and I just early on, I never wanted to be in sales. I had so many different options and I would do almost anything in print, but I really don't want it to be in sales. And now that seems so silly to me because really everything we do on a daily basis is sell an idea or something. And I think I linked it to cold calling.
Hmm.
I was not that person. But to me, the best salespeople are actually the ones who provide value to their customers and that education and innovation. And they really understand the customer's needs. It's not just peddling a product. Right now, I realize that selling is fun and I love to be on calls and meetings with our salespeople. I think they're amazing. And I really would tell myself, don't be afraid of sales.
Yeah, I think sometimes too that bad connotation, like you said, maybe it's the cold calling.
Yeah.
Sometimes sales has that bad connotation. You think of the used car salesman.
Yeah.
You don't trust a salesperson because there's always something in it or whatnot. But that's not the case in most cases, especially in print.
Yeah. And all the projects we do are custom projects. So every project needs a little bit of different expertise and guidance, and it's very involved. So selling is a very fulfilling aspect or job in print.
It's not just about the lowest price. It's not just about some kind of transaction. There really has to be a relationship with the customer in order to really get the product that they want at the end.
Yes, absolutely. It's that collaboration and
Mm.
problem solving on behalf of your customers that you do all the time. That is really rewarding.
Anna, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I really appreciated having you on.
Thank you so much, Denise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to celebrate and amplify the voices of women in the printing industry. If you have a story to share or know someone whose journey deserves to be highlighted, we'd love to hear from you. Together, let's continue inspiring and empowering the next generation of leaders. Until next time, keep leaving your imprint. This is Her Imprint. See you soon.